fall semester at Westbridge University always carried a certain electricity, but for Maya Henderson, it felt like the start of something bigger, something she had been preparing for ever since she set foot on campus. She had come from a small town in Virginia, carrying the kind of ambition that could slice through steel. She wanted to be the first in her family to earn a doctorate in behavioral psychology and become a research scholar known for groundbreaking work. She wanted to make her mother proud. She wanted to make something of herself in a world that didn't expect much from people who grew up in houses patched with hope instead of money. She had built her academic journey on discipline, late-night study sessions, and a determination that had become a second skin. Her reputation was clear, quiet, brilliant, relentless. A candidate any professor would be proud to mentor. Or so she thought. Professor Aaron Callum was the rising star of the psychology department, charismatic, widely published, and with the polished confidence of a man who had never been denied anything. Students praised his lectures, administrators praised his grant contributions, and the university praised his reputation. He had power, and everyone knew it. Maya had enrolled in his upper-level seminar on cognitive manipulation because it aligned with her research goals. At first, she admired his sharp intelligence and commanding presence, but admiration became discomfort within weeks. It started with lingering comments, praise that felt too personal, invitations to office meetings that stretched late into the evening, compliments disguised as academic interest, a hand that brushed her shoulder just a moment too long, jokes that were not jokes at all, gauging how far he could push without crossing the university's invisible but very real line. She tried to believe it was nothing, but the signs collected like storm clouds. During a study review, he leaned too close, his breath warm against her ear as he insisted she needed close mentorship. He began assigning her tasks outside the regular workload, steeped in unnecessary proximity. Slowly, the man who was supposed to guide her education became a constant shadow, unpredictable, invasive, and always watching. The breaking point came during midterms. She stayed after class to clarify an assignment, standing by the whiteboard while he paced behind her, voice low, tone syrup-thick. "You're a standout student, Maya. Easily one of the most promising I've had in years," he said. "People like you get noticed. Opportunities come, doors open." She gave a polite smile, clutching her notebook. "But," he continued, circling around her to face her, "the academic world is competitive, unfair even. Sometimes success comes down to relationships." He placed a hand on the edge of her notebook, lightly tapping. "I can guarantee your spot in my research lab next semester. You want that, don't you?" Her voice tightened. "Of course, but I'd like to earn it on my merits." His smile chilled her. "Merits are flexible, and you're smart enough to know there's a game here. Whether you participate, well, that determines how far a student like you can go." She stepped back, heart pounding. "Professor, if this is about—" "It is," he cut in softly, eyes burning with entitlement. "Consider this a mutually beneficial understanding." Her stomach turned. She left his office that day without looking back, the fluorescent hallways spinning around her. She knew what he was asking for, and she knew rejecting him would come with consequences. The next week, her name vanished from the research nomination list, replaced by students with significantly lower academic standing. Her essay for the departmental grant returned with a sudden and unexplained failing grade. Professor Callum wrote her a recommendation letter so vague and dry it bordered on sabotage. Her future was slipping because of a man who wanted power over her. She filed a formal complaint with the university, gathering every bit of courage she had. She typed a detailed account, submitted everything through the proper channels, and waited. 3 weeks later, the Title IX office responded with a letter so clinical it might as well have been printed in ice. "Due to insufficient evidence and the professor's exemplary institutional record, your claim cannot be substantiated." Her hands shook as she read the final line. "Case closed." Case closed, just like that, as if her experience had been a minor inconvenience, as if he didn't hold control over hundreds of students, as if her voice meant nothing. She sat on the edge of her bed, tears soaking into her pillow, rage forming like iron inside her chest. She had done everything right, played by every rule, trusted the system. The system had failed her. But she was not done. Maya, who had spent her life solving puzzles, analyzing motives, and understanding the intricacies of human behavior, realized something. Power was only power if you let it be. And she was done letting Professor Callum dictate the story. She began observing him not as a student but as a behavioral analyst. She attended his lectures from the back of the room, tracking patterns, his interactions with female students, his late office nights, the way he charmed administrators, the subtle favoritism, the discomfort in other women's eyes that darted away when she tried to approach them. She founded a study group with younger psychology majors. Casual conversations turned into shared experiences. Hesitation turned into confession. Stories she had never heard, allegations whispered behind locked doors. He had done this before, many times, and the university turned away every time, protecting their star professor, protecting their funding pipeline, protecting their brand. Maya kept every detail. Names, dates, testimony. She built a private archive. Still, she needed more than stories. She needed undeniable proof. She knew he would approach her again. Predators repeat patterns, after all. She just had to be ready. The chance came sooner than expected. After class, he asked her to stay, pretending nothing had happened between them. "Maya, I've reconsidered your research placement," he said, locking the door behind them. "If you're willing to recommit to being cooperative, there might be a spot for you after all." This time, Maya didn't shrink. She had a small recording device under her sleeve, steadying her breathing while he talked himself into a corner. He spoke exactly as she expected, careful at first, then bolder, confident she was isolated and fearful. But Maya wasn't fearful anymore. She left with a recording that cracked his mask in half. She didn't send it to the university. She knew they would bury it. She sent it to every student newspaper on campus instead. She sent it to the local news. She sent it to the National Psychology Watchdog Group. She sent it anonymously from a secure server, and she wasn't the only one. The women she had interviewed added supporting statements, each growing braver after the first spark of truth burned through the silence. The story spread like wildfire. Within 48 hours, the campus was flooded with reporters and angry student protests. Parents demanded answers. The dean scrambled to issue statements. Former students came forward. Alumni threatened to withdraw funding. Other victims found their voices. And suddenly, the university could no longer protect their golden professor. Maya watched it all unfold from afar, her heartbeat steady for the first time in months. Professor Callum lost his position. He lost his credibility. His pending book deal vanished. His tenure review was revoked. The university announced a full investigation into past Title IX cases. Still, it wasn't enough, not yet, because justice was not only about exposing the truth, it was about healing the parts of herself that had been shattered. And that part of her story had only begun. When the faculty senate called for a special hearing, Maya made a choice. She would testify, not anonymously, not quietly, not in the shadows where he had tried to keep her. She walked into the hall that day wearing her mother's silver necklace, the one she had worn for every major milestone in her life. The room was packed, professors, staff, students, reporters. A low hum of murmurs filled the space, but as she stepped toward the front, silence washed over the hall like a wave. Professor Callum sat stone-faced across the room, flanked by two lawyers. He looked smaller than she remembered, less powerful, less untouchable. She took the oath, raised her hand, told her story with clarity and unwavering resolve, each word carved into the record, each detail dismantling the facade he had built. When she finished, the room exhaled as though holding its breath for her. She walked out of the hall feeling lighter, but the story was not over. Professor Callum wasn't finished, either. And the final battle had yet to begin. The hearing was supposed to be the end, the final chapter of Maya's long fight for justice. But endings were never that clean, especially when someone like Professor Aaron Callum was backed into a corner for the first time in his privileged life. The faculty senate suspended him indefinitely pending a full investigation. Students chanted outside the administration building. News crews hovered around campus like vultures waiting for movement. And Maya, for the first time since stepping into his classroom, felt like she could breathe. But predators rarely go quietly. 3 days after the hearing, while she was tucked in the corner of the campus cafe, writing her final project and sipping a mocha that tasted like freedom, she received an email. A cease and desist letter. From Callum's attorney. Claiming defamation, manipulation, malicious intent. He was threatening to sue her. Her hands trembled over the keyboard. The old fear crept in again, the fear he had cultivated like a vine wrapping around her life. But this time, she had something stronger than fear. She had truth, evidence, support, and a community that had risen because she dared to speak. Still, the letter rattled her. She went to the Title IX office. They dismissed her concerns, reminding her that he had a right to protect his reputation. She went to the dean. He offered sympathy but no help. She even reached out to the Student Legal Center, but they could only provide limited advice. Maya realized something. The university would not protect her, not truly. They had turned their back when she first cried out. They would do it again if it suited them. She needed someone on her side. She called her mother. Her mother, who had raised her alone, who had worked double shifts, who had scraped together every resource she could so Maya could chase her dreams. When her mother answered, her voice warm and steady, Maya finally let herself cry, not out of fear, but out of exhaustion. "I'm proud of you," her mother said softly. "You didn't let him break you, and you won't let him scare you now." "I don't want him to ruin everything," Maya whispered. "He already took so much." "He's not taking anything else," her mother replied. "You hear me? Nothing." Her mother connected her with a family friend, an attorney with a reputation for being relentless, a woman who had built her career defending victims of institutional abuse, someone who believed in justice, not politics. Her name was Serena Lockhart. Serena listened to everything, her expression changing from calm to focused to thunderous. When Maya finished, Serena closed her notebook. "You did everything right," she said, "and they failed you, more than once. We're going on the offensive." "The offensive," Maya echoed. "You're being threatened by a man who has a history of predatory behavior, backed by an institution that has repeatedly ignored complaints. This isn't about defending yourself anymore. It's about exposing the system that allowed him to thrive." Maya felt a surge of strength brew in her chest. She had been surviving for so long that she had forgotten what fighting back felt like. Serena filed a counter notice, demanding that the university provide all records of past complaints against Callum. She contacted former students who had emailed Maya but were too afraid to go public. She pushed for a full state-level investigation. She demanded accountability. Within weeks, the narrative shifted again. Callum wasn't just a professor accused of misconduct. He was now the center of a widening scandal, one that exposed years of ignored complaints, suppressed reports, and fabricated evaluations that painted him as flawless. The university tried to distance itself, but the story had already taken fire. A major national news outlet picked it up next. Westbridge University under scrutiny for mishandling sexual misconduct allegations against star professor. There were interviews, panel discussions. Students protested daily. Alumni demanded change. Donors threatened withdrawal, and the administration scrambled like an anthill that had been kicked open. Maya watched from afar, heart pounding every time her name surfaced on a news scroll. She didn't want fame. She wanted justice. But justice isn't always quiet. One night, as campus police escorted her across the quad, standard precaution during the investigation, she felt a familiar presence watching her. She turned. Callum stood in the shadows, by the administration building. His face was hollow, jaw clenched, eyes no longer charismatic but desperate. A man whose power was slipping through his fingers like sand. A man who had never learned how to handle consequences. "You ruined my life," he hissed into the night. "No," Maya said softly. "You ruined your own." He stepped closer, but the officers moved instantly, stopping him. He raised his hands in surrender, but his eyes never left hers. "You think you've won," he said. "I know I have," she answered, "because I'm not afraid of you anymore." Those words shook him more than any article, any protest, any hearing. The truth was a mirror, and for the first time he was being forced to look. The next morning, the university placed him under official investigation. Days later, he was terminated. His professional licenses were suspended. His book contracts canceled. His peers distanced themselves as if his downfall were contagious. But the final blow came when the district attorney announced a full inquiry into his past conduct and the university's role in covering it up. He wasn't just losing his job. He was losing everything. For once, Maya didn't feel guilty. She didn't feel conflicted. She felt strong. Still, she wasn't finished. She agreed to speak at a campus-wide forum on systemic reform. The auditorium was full: students, faculty, press, victims, survivors. The lights felt hot against her face as she approached the podium, but her voice was steady. "I'm here today," she began, "because one man tried to take my future, and a system tried to silence me. But when I spoke up, others found their voices too. This isn't just my story. This is a pattern that has gone unchecked for too long. Change doesn't start with institutions. It starts with people brave enough to stand together. We're not asking for protection. We're demanding it." The room erupted into applause, raw and thunderous. After the speech, survivors, some older, some her age, some crying, some trembling, approached her one by one. They thanked her. They hugged her. They said they felt seen for the first time. For Maya, this was justice. Not because her name cleared. Not because Callum fell. Not because the university finally acknowledged their failure. But because she had reclaimed her voice. Weeks later, the district attorney's investigation concluded. Callum faced charges for coercion, harassment, and misconduct. Several former students came forward, providing enough evidence to ensure he would never hold a position of authority again. The university was fined for negligence. Reforms were implemented. A new Title IX director was hired. Mandatory, independent oversight was established. And Maya, she received a full scholarship extension, an apology letter from the dean, and an offer to join a prestigious research team. A real one she earned without compromise, without manipulation, without submitting to power disguised as mentorship. But the greatest moment came on a quiet morning when she walked across campus, coffee in hand, the crisp autumn wind brushing her hair. She passed the psychology building, the place where everything began, and felt nothing but peace. She had survived. She had fought. She had won. Her mother's silver necklace gleamed softly at her collarbone as she paused at the doorway, touching it gently. "You did good, baby," her mother had told her once. "You did real good." And Maya believed it now. Justice wasn't perfect. It wasn't clean. But she had carved it out with her own hands, out of courage and truth and the refusal to stay silent. She had walked through fire, and she wasn't just standing, she was rising. The world wasn't the same anymore. Neither was she. Maya left the building, her stride steady, her heart unburdened. Her story wasn't defined by what he did to her. It was defined by what she did next. And she had rewritten the ending.